Hello and welcome back to day 6 of the 12 Days of Christmas Watercolor Challenge. If you need to catch up on any of the tutorials, I'll have the entire playlist linked down below in the description of each of the videos. So just head on down this one and you can find a link to the other previous videos and also more information on how to sign up for the challenge and get these free printable outlines so you do not need to worry about sketching. Today we are going to be painting these fun snowflakes, but we're going to do a technique that maybe you've done before. We are going to be using some masking fluid. This is a removable liquid mask that you actually put on to the watercolor paper. And then what it does is it preserves the paper, and then we will create a really beautiful kind of crystally background. And I'll use even some salt just to kind of create that fun crystal background technique. And then from there, once everything is dried, we'll go back through and rub the masking fluid off, and our white of the paper will be shining still through. If you do not have masking fluid, do not worry. You certainly can do this one without. You'll just have to instead work around the individual snowflakes is one idea for the background. And then you could go back through and kind of emphasize some of these snowflakes with the bleed proof white. All right. So when you're doing the masking fluid, you're going to want to have a brush that really is kind of dedicated to masking fluid purposes because it can just be really hard on your brushes. So I am going to open this up and we are going to start to, I'm using a really tiny brush for this. So anywho, it's very liquidy. And I'm just going to take some and we are just going to start to paint in those areas of, just kind of paint inside of our snowflakes. The nice thing about this masking fluid is that it has kind of that off-white color. It's kind of yellowy, so you can see where you've like already been. So, and it's going to take just a little bit of patience, but we'll just go through, turn on some music, and just don't want it too much where you can't control it. Go through and paint over or inside of each of the snowflakes. So let me just go ahead and start to do that. So a lot of this, I definitely don't need to talk you through. It really is just a matter of putting that masking fluid on like that. All right, so let's just continue. Just going to try and go pretty quickly here. And try not to dump over my masking fluid to my desk. That would be bad. And so here, it doesn't necessarily matter how much of a layer you put on, just as long as you can tell that it has a different color than the paper. That means that it has been applied. All right, so this is just an old little liner brush that I have. I don't like using it anymore because the bristles have been worked too much and they are definitely getting frayed. So yeah, if you are wondering what type of supplies that I like to use, I have my Amazon storefront linked down below, and that has a variety of supplies that I enjoy using for watercolor. And so you could go ahead and take a peek at that. But I'm hoping that whatever supplies you have for this challenge, you are just having fun pulling them out, painting along, and not feeling intimidated by not having certain supplies. That is definitely not the point, but also just want to kind of share with you, if you are loving this challenge and interested in getting more into watercolor, the type of supplies that I enjoy using. All right, so continue. It's almost like this like glue. But yeah, so eventually we'll just go back and rub it off. You can either use your finger. Times I've seen people use an eraser. And yeah. All right. Just going to quickly speed this up. That way we can get to painting the background, which I cannot wait. I think that's going to turn out so cool with white snowflakes. People will use masking fluid for when they're painting like portraits. I've seen people do really beautiful things with wedding dresses. So as we know, wedding dresses obviously are white, and some of the lace needs to be extra white. So they'll leave parts of that. They'll paint the masking fluid on there first, paint around or on top of it, and then sometimes they'll go back through and add little other details. But it's just a nice way to preserve parts of the paper that if you know that you're going to get kind of messy in other areas, it protects it. I actually personally don't use masking fluid in my portraits. It's just not a part of my workflow, but I do think it's kind of fun to use, especially for projects like this. And yeah, definitely explore other artists online and see how they use masking fluid if you are interested in doing something with that. I know that it is a big tool within the watercolor world. Okay. Lots of little tiny lines to fill in, but I know it's going to be worth it. I do my best to stay in the lines. Oops, that was probably too much. Okay. And if you are participating in the challenge and are hoping to win free entry into my signature course, Master Watercolor Dog Breeds, I'll be doing a giveaway for that. It'll just be a randomly drawn giveaway of somebody who has finished all 12 paintings by the deadline. I have all the information down below in the description to know exactly when the deadline is and all that. You can just scroll on down, find out info. But yeah, so if you are partaking in that, you'll just want to make sure to submit your paintings by the deadline. And I'm going to do a random drawing of someone to win lifetime access into my course. And I'll be recording the entries over on Instagram. So you'll post them over on Instagram, tag me at Windswept Design Studio. If you don't have Instagram, don't worry. You can send an email to me. So again, I'll have all that information down below in this video, or if you already signed up, you'll get the emails and know the details. All right. I am about halfway, or maybe a little over halfway here on these snowflakes. Sometimes these seem a little bit putsy, but hopefully it is just kind of like relaxing. You can mute me if you'd like and listen to music instead while we are painting or doing the masking fluid. Yeah. Hopefully you are taking time for yourself a little bit for, the busy holidays and just getting some quiet, creative time. This is always such a full season, so it is nice to have a reason to escape it here and there, which is why I've always loved running this challenge every year. This is now the 4th year, so if you've been here from the beginning, thank you. Super excited to have you back. If you were just joining for the first time, I hope you are loving it and will stick around for future watercolor tutorials here on my channel. Many times I discuss my love for painting pet portraits over here. So if you also enjoy painting pets, you're in a great place here. And yeah, I'd love to take my watercolor designs and create products with them. That is also something that I enjoy sharing and enjoy showing you how you too can create really cool products from your watercolor artworks. All right. So you can already tell that my brush is getting caked from the masking fluid that's drying. So if yours is like mine, you can kind of just try and get it off. All right. It's starting to clog up my brush a little too much. Oops. Well, now it's working too well. All right, go back through. So some of these will be really hard just because they are so tiny. So if you don't get it perfectly in the lines of these snowflakes, it's okay. This masking fluid, depending on how much you put on the paper, should dry pretty quickly. So, like I already can feel this up here from where we started is dry and it's ready for me to paint right over top. All right, just a few more little strokes of masking fluid. And just rotating my paper in case it just makes it easier, which is a lot of reasons why I don't like taping my paper down. I certainly do when it comes to painting portraits. Usually I'm not rotating those paintings too often, so you definitely can use like a painter's tape, a blue painter's tape that you would use to paint the wall. That's one of the favorite tools that I have on my desk. And it just helps to make sure that your paper isn't warping too much. Okay, last little piece to my snowflake. And then I'm just gonna be patient and let it dry in a few places. So now you can kind of see that kind of glistening. It looks almost like a gold color. And try to wash your brush off as soon as you can. Gets that masking fluid off of it. All right, just gonna rotate my paper towel and just kind of taking a look at this, making sure that things are feeling good and dry. There's just a few areas down here that maybe aren't quite fully dry yet. Okay. So what we are going to do, I'm going to put the top on my masking fluid so that doesn't go tumbling over somewhere. We are going to paint the background in a really beautiful variety of blues. I have both a Winsor blue, which is kind of that brighter crystal-y blue, and then I have a ultramarine, French ultramarine blue. I might even use a little bit of the Payne's Gray, which is that dark, almost navy-like color. And then when our painting is wet, I'm going to drop in some salt and let that dry. And yeah, all right, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to grab my larger pointed round brush, size 10, and we are going to use quite a bit of water. I'm going to get my blues kind of ready. Some of these blues have so much pigment to them. And then I'll grab some of this blue over here. Oops, it's picking up some brown. I do not want brown. Must have had a little bit of brown stuck in the side of my case there. So get a nice clean area in your palette. What I like to do is take a wet paper towel and just kind of smear it off and pick it up. All right. Let's just start with, oh, as you can see, I already have blue or some of the brown. That's okay. I'm just going to use mostly water we're gonna run it all over with a little bit of that blue in there. And again, pick up some more blue. And what I really want to make sure is that the area around my snowflakes are going to be the darkest, bluest part. They're really, really going to pop that way if I make sure that the area around them is going to be the boldest. All right, so then I'll just take some water and I'll move around the paper and really have fun with this because you really can't mess it up. And then I'll take some of that blue again, drop it in around the snowflakes. It'll be important to kind of work a little, I have too much brown in there. It'll be important to work a little bit faster. Okay, so you want to bring in maybe some of those other blues before it dries. Okay. Because we want to get to the ice or the crystally salt part of it as well. All right, you can definitely work with a larger brush. I'm just trying to stick with a few brushes for this entire series, and that way it just makes it super doable if you are newer to watercolor. All right. Again, you can kind of see how those snowflakes are really, like, you can tell that the masking fluid is working and doing its job. Okay, working my way down. So the more water that you use on your painting, it's definitely going to buckle a little bit more. So there are ways you certainly can flatten your painting after it's done. I've seen a lot of people do like the hair dryer method, and they will just go ahead and hair dry it, you know, on the back, and then they will flatten it with a book. So definitely something that you can do, or especially if you're trying to send it as a card. But if you're going to put it into like a frame, it's not quite as a big deal to have it super flat. All right, I'm loving the way this is coming together. I know it's hard to tell with the reflection, but you can just kind of see how the blues are just kind of dancing together in the water. Okay, just gonna continue down here. Just trying to use a few other colors. I've already used those blues. I have not used any of the Payne's Gray, and I don't know if I will. I think I like the brighter feel to this. Oops, that was quite a bit of blue. Just pick up more water. Just start to push that around. All right, again, working pretty quickly. Luckily, with 140-pound cold press paper, you have a little bit of extra wiggle room for time, a little bit more time to work with it. But I definitely want to keep going quickly because I would like to get the salt in there before it fully dries. And also what will be helpful too, if you would like to hurry this painting along, is grabbing a hairdryer and helping it dry a little bit quicker. Okay, so I got through the entire painting. Let's just see if we want to add any of our blues anywhere else. Maybe I'll just add a little more blue there. And just doing that wet on wet technique, so it just kind of sprawls along the paper. A little more over here. Something to note too, I know I've mentioned this in previous videos, is that watercolor is going to dry lighter than you originally painted it. So if you like what you're seeing, just know that it's going to dry just a little bit lighter. So I think what I'm going to do is just use a little bit more of that dark blue or that ultramarine blue. Just so it really gets in the grooves of some of those snowflakes. Yeah, I really like the way this is coming just because I never really explore this wet on wet technique much when I'm doing portraits. So it's just such a fun way to relax and try new things. Okay, let's see. Anything else we want to add? Maybe a little more up here. And let's see, maybe a little more of this one right here. Just trying to make sure that these areas actually hold on to the blue a little bit more, so they really pop. All right. All right, so here we have, before the salt, is all these different fun blues with our snowflake designs. Just kind of mystify some of these areas with our wet brush. Like I said, you just cannot mess this up. So let's now grab, if you have salt and want to do, oh, isn't that lovely? This fly is on my painting. All right. Just a little visitor, I guess. So let's grab some salt. I'm just using a traditional, like, kosher salt. And if I got to it quick enough, hopefully, I'll just drop it in there. And it should hopefully soak up some of the water in those areas. But again, now we have to be patient to let it dry. So there might be some areas it's just not going to work because there wasn't as much water or color to soak up. All right. So now we are going to wait for that to dry, and I will come right back. Once this is dry, we'll remove the salt and the masking fluid together. Okay, so I'm actually coming back to this painting the next day. You certainly do not need to wait an entire day for this to dry or wait overnight or anything, just as long as your painting is really very dry. So usually within an hour or 2 hours. And if you want to speed it up, you definitely could get a hairdryer and run it over top to speed it along. So anyways, now I am ready to brush off the salt from this painting. And we are then going to remove the masking fluid to reveal the white of the paper for our snowflakes. But isn't this texture with the salt, isn't that just such a fun texture, especially when you're creating some winter paintings? I just think that's always such a pretty look. Okay. So now I just got all that off, and of course now we have a little bit of a mess, but what art project is not a little messy? I'll just clear some of that over. Okay. Now, so when it comes to taking the removable masking fluid off, you certainly could just use your finger, or you can use like an eraser. And what you'll do is you'll just scrub, which I think personally works the best. So I'm just going to show you that up close here. I've done part of this snowflake, and you can see that the white of the paper is being revealed, and it has not been altered in any way as far as like with watercolor paints, which is just such a cool effect with a masking fluid. So I'm just going to go through and erase this masking fluid. You could use any pencil eraser, big or small. And we're just going to scrub it right off. Okay, so now you can see how nice and bright that one snowflake is. Just go through, take them off. And then once we're done taking the masking fluid off, it's going to be up to you if you feel like you want to enhance your snowflakes in any way with maybe the bleed-proof white or any type of, blue color. My intention for this painting was to leave the white snowflakes as is once the masking fluid came off. All right, so just continue to erase. This is just such a really fun tool to try out and see and think about other ideas of what you can do with masking fluid and revealing the white of the paper like this. So this was a really great example of focusing on the negative space, so all the background, and then letting the white of the paper be the subject. All right, we're getting close. And you'll kind of notice too that if you decide to do this painting or try it again, in some areas of mine, I wish I could have gone maybe a little bit darker in the background. So like this one maybe could have used a little bit more blue behind it. It still definitely pops. Let's just see how the rest of these look. I wouldn't suggest going back and enhancing the background after the fact. I think that would be a little too risky. Usually it's best just to leave the watercolor with a wet on wet technique like this. After it's dry, just let it be. But definitely play around with it. Maybe you'll find a technique that you really like. Okay, 2 more to go, almost there. It's nice to be able to erase this and then not worry about erasing my watercolor paint. Okay. All right. So there we have our white snowflakes revealed and that really cool texture from the salt that creates that like misty crystal background and just makes it look extra icy. All right, just make sure that we get all of those little remnants off. And again, you could take your bleed-proof white if you weren't super happy with how maybe some of your snowflakes came out. You'll just take a tiny fine liner brush. So here I have like a 000. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll pull it out onto my actual palette. And I like to spin my brush in it just to make sure that it's nice and pointy. So like for example, this one kind of got some of the watercolor on the snowflake. So I could just take it and run right over top and just trace right over that snowflake again. And it's just going to make it stand out and be a little extra white. It's gonna look extra white in the video right now just because it is a little bit wet paint. So it's glistening. But yeah, so this is just a nice little way to even clean up some of those edges if you didn't quite get them how you like. Okay. So I'll just do that one just to touch it up so you can kind of see. And I think that looks really nice. So feel free to continue on with that method if you would like. Otherwise, I hope you really enjoyed today's snowflake tutorial for day number 6 during our 12 Days of Christmas Watercolor Challenge. Again, if you are partaking in the entire challenge and posting your photos, please tag me over on Instagram when you post them at Windswept Design Studio. I'll have all the details linked below so you can participate and hopefully win a free entry into my Master Watercolor Dark Reads course. All right, everybody, thanks so much for being here, and I will see you tomorrow for day 7.